welcome back. In this video, we're going to be talking about making changes that are small enough. Making changes that are small enough. Because this is another huge part of living the adult perspective and fully living the adult perspective. It is coming into a place where we understand that our nervous systems are finite, that we are not only our intellect and our minds and what we can understand, that we are fully fledged, emotional, physical, alive human beings that need to work with all aspects of ourselves when we are wanting to create change in our lives. So as much as, again, we live in a culture that has taught us that because you can intellectually understand something, you know it. Because you can understand the theory, because you can listen to the video, because you can read the book, because you took the information into your mind and you understand it, that this means that you can do it, that you can live it, that you should be able to just take that and run with it. And this is the foundational misunderstanding of our humanity that keeps all of us stuck in a state where when we try to make changes and we try to grow, we go way too hard, way too fast. And we constantly slingshot ourselves back into our comfort zone, constantly slingshot ourselves back into doing what we've always done and feeling how we've always felt and acting how we've always acted. Not because we're weak, not because we're lazy, not because we're broken, bad, wrong, or shameful, but because we have bodies and emotions and all other kinds of aspects of self that evolved to keep us safe by keeping us the same. We need to understand, again, that I heard Martha Beck say this, that there's a stat that 99% of people, by the time they're 25, have created the patterns that they are going to repeat and live and be in for the rest of their lives. That by the time we're 25, we've figured out enough of how to get our needs met in relationships, how to eat, how to move, how to work, what careers we're going to have, all of these things, who we're going to be, how we're going to be, that we really don't change very much, if at all, from the time we're 25 to the time we die. We basically just live that life and accumulate the consequences of that life for the rest of our lives. We need to understand that, again, our brains and our bodies evolved in a time and a space. We're constantly going into the unknown and moving into new territory, and growth and change was deeply unsafe. Where those who were able to program in instinctual responses to life and to just repeat those instinctual responses, so long as they serve to help you survive, that was the best way to survive. Because having to think critically and make conscious decisions every time we're stimulated was way too much. There's so much stimulation in life, there's so much that we didn't even cognitively understand, that instinct driving the ship was literally the best way to survive. If you just could repeat your patterns instinctually over and over again, in a time when we lived in that one-to-one relationship with nature, if your pattern was truly beneficial, you survived. So you kept that pattern, you survived, and then you passed it on, and you just did it over and over again, and it was successful. We are now no longer living in those conditions. We are now no longer living in a world where we can be making mistakes in terms of doing things that are actually counter to our survival, that are counter to what's good for us, and that immediately ending our lives. We have created so much technology and so much awareness and so much safety for ourselves that we can now live in ways that are totally antithetical to what we need and what is good for us and what supports us. And we can repeat those patterns over and over and over and over and over and over and over again and still survive and still be okay. And that's part of what we need to understand now, is that we're working with old software, a software that developed in a time where 1-to-1, if you did what was best for your survival, you were going to survive. If you didn't do what was best for your survival, you weren't going to survive. We don't live in that world anymore. So a lot of us, again, we developed our habits and our patterns and our instincts in our childhoods, when we had less autonomy, less understanding, less awareness than we have now, when we had less power, when we were in that temporary reality where getting love and getting acceptance from our caregivers by augmenting our behavior so that they would understand us and they would get our needs met was the best way to survive. So we had that. We had that temporary reality that no longer is true reality as adults. And we have evolved the instinctual, just repeat your patterns, especially when you're scared, especially when you feel threatened, especially when you don't feel good enough. And that will make you survive in a world now where we can get away with a whole bunch of things that don't actually serve to keep us alive, that don't actually serve to help us thrive, because we have the safety net of our modern culture. Yeah, that we're not being faced with the true consequences of our actions and our thought patterns and the ways that we live the way we used to, because life has gotten so much more complex. So again, we need to understand that this following our instinct and doing what we've always done and all of that stuff is, again, the way we've all been programmed. It's normal, it's natural, it's how we evolved. And so working with that means we need to understand that we are up against our biology. We are up against years and years for ourselves of our own patterns that our bodies and our brains want to repeat over and over and over again. When we're scared, when we don't feel good, when we're triggered, we are always going to want to do what we've always done. And it is not until we have proven to ourselves through enough repetition and slow progress that a new way works better than what we've always done that we're going to naturally start to do the new thing. We are never going to just get rid of a coping mechanism, get rid of a self-sabotaging behavior, get rid of a way that we numb. We are never going to be able to just step into a new eating way or a new form of relating or a new job, work situation, whatever it is that we're trying to change, and just be able to do it. We will be able to do it for a while, and inevitably, no matter what, no matter who you are, no matter how beneficial the new thing is, you're going to fall back to what you've always done before. You're going to go back to your old patterns. You're going to get triggered, you're going to get stressed, you're going to get overwhelmed, and you're going to go back to how you were. Now, this doesn't mean that you're stuck with your patterns forever. Like I said, if we work with ourselves long enough and slow enough, we just keep reintroducing new patterns. We just keep reintroducing new ways of being that are actually founded in getting our needs met better. Eventually, we will replace old habits with new habits. We will develop new patterns that become our new normal. But again, this is why we start with the compassion and curiosity. Because in order to create new patterns that you actually stick to for the rest of your life, that eventually get you to the point where you no longer need to do the thing you used to do, or where you've changed in a significant enough way that your patterns and your habits are very different than they used to be, that your life circumstance is different than how it used to be, and you can actually live in that and feel comfortable, it's repetition. But also, again, it's understanding what we were doing before and how it served us, what needs it got met for us, how it supported us, how it worked for us, what the positive benefits were, so that we can learn new and different ways of getting those needs met and getting those same positive benefits with less of the damage. And then again, we always work from never taking anything away from ourselves. We're not taking away our coping mechanism. We're not taking away the old thing as much as we have control. Because sometimes life changes, and it changes, and it forces us into a new way. And that's, again, when we learn to have a lot of compassion for ourselves. But in these things that we're trying to change through our will, again, we have to understand where we're coming from first and foremost. We have to start with compassion and curiosity first and foremost. Because, again, we cannot force ourselves to become something new if the new thing that we're doing doesn't get the same needs met that the old thing did. We're never going to get rid of our needs. We're never going to get rid of our wants. We're never going to get rid of our personalities and what truly does and doesn't work for us. So we must embrace the positive benefits of whatever we're doing. And sometimes, right, this comes with having to accept that we are a way that we don't want to be, that we have needs we wish we didn't have, that we have desires that we wish we didn't have. It's sometimes coming to terms with the fact that we are never going to be able to be what we were expected to be and that we were trying to push ourselves to be, because that's what was expected of us, because that was our conditioning, and having to grieve all of that and to become okay with who we are. And that's, again, like a big part of making change, is realizing that sometimes the changes you're trying to make, you can't make them because they're not authentic to you. So we're starting with that compassion and curiosity first and foremost. We're starting with self-support and who am I really in this moment? And how do I best support that? And again, we're understanding that slow and steady change over time is the fastest way. Because when we push our nervous systems to make too big of a change before we're ready, all that does is put us into a state of fear that will slingshot us back into what we've always done. There is no rushing the nervous system. There is no rushing the nervous system. So when making change, we start with curiosity and compassion. We start with really getting clear on why we want to make the changes we want to make. What do we think these changes are going to do for us? What's wrong with what we're doing now? If we're working from a place of compassion for ourselves and we're not trying to fix ourselves, why do we want to change? Is this really a change that is authentic to us, or is this something we think will make other people like us more, right? We get clear on why we're doing what we're doing, as in why we're wanting to make the changes we're wanting to make. And then we have that compassion for, why am I doing it the way that I'm doing it? Why am I in the habits that I'm in? What needs does this get met? What are my needs? What are my desires? And again, as we start to change and shift, and we get pulled back into our old ways, there will be more and more clarity on this. And then we get honest, again, about, is this something that I actually genuinely want? Or is this something that I think will make me good? Or that I think is going to perfect my life? Am I forcing myself into something, thinking it's going to be this radical transformation that it's really not? We get radically honest. And then we take the changes we think we're capable of making, and we cut them in half. We take the changes we thought we were capable of making and we cut them in half. And we realize that, again, the nervous system is probably not as capable as the mind is. So we've cut what we're doing in half. And then as we allow ourselves to navigate just these little incremental changes in our lives, the little shifts. We have compassion when we fall back. We have compassion when we go back to what we were doing before. We make it safe and we make it okay, so that we're not triggering ourselves into a deeper state of fear, which will just trigger us deeper into our patterns. We make it okay. We investigate, okay, how did that help me? How did that serve me? What was going on there? And then we practice the new thing again. And we're just going to toggle back and forth, making it okay that we fall back, getting back into the new habits when we can, making sure that the new habits are actually supportive of us, understanding that that fear is always going to be there, the resistance, the discomfort, the falling back, and we just work it and work it and work it and work it and work it until it becomes our new normal. It's compassion, it's self-honesty, and it's being willing to learn along the way. So we don't force ourselves. We do not push ourselves. We do not go past what the nervous system is capable of. And so long as we choose to live like that, so long as we choose to live with that, we're going to find that we make the most progress possible. Because the alternate reality is there is no alternate reality. There's no alternate reality where we go faster and the faster route works. Most of the time it just triggers us into stagnancy, not being able to do anything, getting overwhelmed and feeling like we're stuck and we're trapped and we don't know how to motivate ourselves because you've been trying to do too much a lot of the time. Or, like I said, you're trying to go in a direction that your body and your mind don't actually want to go in. And it doesn't actually feel good for you. Or you need some support. And we go slow. And we know that we're going to fall back. We know we're going to go into our old habits. And we know how to handle that. Compassion, curiosity, and then getting back to the new thing and just repeating and repeating and repeating until it becomes the new way. Okay? So that's that. Small changes are the fastest way. Small changes are the fastest way. You cannot outchange your nervous system. So work with your nervous system. Figure out where your nervous system is capable of being stretched a little and don't go beyond that. And you will find that you make the most progress possible. You can have a radical transformation in 10 years. And you'll feel better incrementally all along the way. So long as you work with where your nervous system is actually at, self-support for the you that actually exists right now. What do you that actually exists right now need? That's the path.